What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Breaking Bet here on this Wednesday, November 11th. We're looking at Week 11 NFL slate. Last week, my guy Eric Pauly was celebrating a birthday. Happy birthday, brother. Hope it was a great one. Many more. But now he's back, and we're in the midst of a lot of different things happening here, and we have a lot of stuff to get into today. But I want to say, how was your birthday? We welcome you back. Talk to the people.
Glad to be back. Last week, celebrated my birthday this time. Last week was with the fam. Got a nice steak. Went to the beach, even, which is crazy that it's that nice out in New York that I was able to go to a beach on November 6th. But it was a good time, and glad to be back. Unfortunately, last week, not saying it correlates necessarily with my being off the grid a little bit, but got murdered last week betting the NFL, unfortunately. All in the game, obviously. We're betting some of the most efficient markets, if not the most efficient market in all of U.S. sports betting. So it's obviously due to happen here and there. But, not a great week for me last week in terms of gambling. But I had a great week in terms of life. So I guess that it ends up evening out. But what about you, Johnny? How was your week?
I got my clock cleaned circa million and went 0 for 5. I could have, it was insane. And this is the thing that pisses me off. Every week, it's something new, right? So you had September, it's all the upsets. So September's actually, and this is comes from years and years of winning and losing and trial and error. But September is a lot of these spreads that are mispriced, and that's where you're going to take the dogs. You're going to get a lot of these dogs covering these spreads. October, it stiffens up a little bit, and you get a little bit more of the favorites. Now we're in this push-pull part of the season where before this past week, so weeks 8 and 9 was favorite dominated. Favorite dominated. You're looking at some of these matchups coming into week 10. It's there's no way some of these teams can win or even cover. And then it's fucking 11-3 to the underdog to cover the spreads. 6 dogs won outright. There's a couple where it's okay, that makes sense. New England beating Chicago, on some level, I suppose that's fine. But the Vikings barely escaping the Jaguars led by Mac Jones, who, by the way, only scored 7 points. Darnold would not stop throwing interceptions in the end zone. You have Detroit, who found a way to win. Goff throws 5 picks, but guess what? Houston still covers. There was so many games where the underdogs were able to hang tough, even against a much better team. So that's a very frustrating thing. And this is kind of something that if you get your clock clean, like I did, it was probably my first losing week in the snaps, a 3-week losing streak. This is one where you have to take a deep breath, take a step back, regroup, go back to the drawing board. You realize you're going to get hit with a couple of those weeks throughout the NFL season. And, when it zigs, you zag.
Yeah, 100%. Again, we're talking about quite literally the most efficient betting market in U.S. sports betting. And also, Johnny, I don't know if you saw this. It was circulating on Twitter. Don't need to spend too much time on this, but some guy with a pretty big following put out a video talking about how the NFL product and the quality of play and just the quality of the sport overall is just bad. And we've talked about this a few times on the show where sometimes I'm literally watching a game. I know you're much more adamant about some of these things than I am, where you're bro, what the hell am I watching? Why am I even watching this sport go down? And I think where I'm going with this is not to go into whether or not it is bad, isn't bad, so on and so forth. It's just when they say the NFL is chess on grass, it is true. There is so much strategy, so many intricate things going on in the sport, on the field, on both sides of the field. So there are going to be weeks where again, you're looking at a team that should be much better than another team, but maybe they do match up well on some very low-key underlying metrics, and that's what leads to some of these teams covering. And then there's a myriad of factors as to why teams are not going to play their best or not be able to cover a point spread. As we saw, obviously, the Giants losing outright to Carolina. It's just one of those situations where it's are you really going to lay 6 points with Daniel Jones? We know that Bryce Young's kind of in that auto fade, but I'm not saying that I did. I had that actually in the teaser, so I did bet on Daniel Jones just to win, but I wasn't laying 6 with Daniel Jones. But There's a reason why, like we've talked about, John, there's a reason why DraftKings and FanDuel are billion-dollar companies. There's a reason why the casino resorts exist in Las Vegas. Like, if this shit was easy, we wouldn't be out here talking about it.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on this, I've honestly been saying this for years. I've been saying this for the last 2 or 3 years. I complain about it all the time. I think the NFL has gotten worse each and every season. I'm not a big recency bias guy. I can't stand recency bias. I think it's poison. I think people's ideas of what just happened is obviously going to supersede something that they've watched over a long duration. And the idea of what they just saw changes their mind because it's the freshest in their heads. I truly believe this is the worst year of NFL football that I can ever remember watching. The product isn't good. And, listen, you're going to get these talking heads that work for networks that are going to try and convince you because they don't work for these networks. They work for the NFL. And it's kind of – now, I can say this to somebody that doesn't collect a check from an ESPN say. I don't collect a check from NBC Sports anymore. But there is a real feeling that if you're being objective, a lot of people feel the same way. It's not good. The flags are disgusting. It's terrible. There's no accountability for refs. A ref could literally get away with murder and nothing happens. If a player says something, there goes $100,000 of their game check. Like, there's no structure. There's no authoritarian system other than Roger Goodell, one of the worst crisis managers that the league has seen. Like, let's bring back Paul Tagliabue, for Christ's sake, if that's the case. But on field, I think the coaching has gotten a lot worse. We're rushing in quarterbacks. If they don't do good in 5 minutes, we're sitting them as Joe Flacco was supposed to be the starting quarterback for the Colts the rest of the year. Shane Steichen said 2 weeks ago. Anthony Richardson's back this week. It's just there's not enough patience. There's too much chasing greatness. You get a couple outside the box examples like a Brock Purdy in a Kyle Shanahan system and, or Jaden Daniels in Washington. And, hey, let's go win now. If they don't show me something in 5 minutes, then we're going to go somewhere else.
No, I agree. And I think I know like Tom Brady spoke about this, like there's a much deeper issue that, again, you and I probably can't even speak to because we don't obviously see them in practice. We don't know what they're doing, not just in the NFL, in high school now, and of course in college with NIL and how these teams are operated and how Brady mentioned, like they're just not in programs anymore. And I think that definitely has a piece of the puzzle as to why things are looking so poor. But I also will say that I think both things can be true. I think it can be true that we are seeing some of the highest level football from like a schematic standpoint, but also agree it's not fun to watch at times. I think, and again, not like arguing with you, but kind of with like just generalizing again on like what's going on Twitter. Like, I know the debate was like if football sucks, then everybody sucks, or if football is great, everybody's great. I think it's a middle ground. I think everybody is really good, and not everybody, of course. Like you said, there are terrible coaches. Obviously, still a lot of terrible quarterbacks, but I think the elite of the elite is as good as it's ever been across coaching, quarterbacks, defensive players, schemes, coordinators, etc. But I also think at times it does lead to a product that is terrible. And then, of course, you have two crappy teams going at it. It's going to be even worse than what you'd like. So I think it is a case of both things being true, where the league is in a good place in terms of their superstars, and the NFL owns us, so nobody's going away and stopping watching this stuff. But I do agree at times it is like watching paint dry.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna switch it up a little bit. I know I wanted to start talking a little bit more futures, and I think now we can start introducing it a little bit. Every week we kind of do the same thing in terms of going through every game and seeing what we like, or if there's a lean, if there's a prop, whatever. Tonight I want to talk about this because we're discussing it off air. The NFL MVP race is right now something that I really wanted to talk about, and I know I want your opinion. So before we get into the games tonight, we're going to touch on this MVP race and see if there's anything that makes sense to bet or who you think might win, who's somebody to keep an eye on, etc. So, Eric, the NFL MVP race at this very moment on FanDuel features Lamar as a plus 110 favorite. He was about 2-1, I believe, heading into the week. Josh Allen 4-1, Mahomes 6-1, Hurts 12-1, JD 14-1, Purdy 17-1, Kyler 22. I don't know why I didn't put Kyler Murray, so my bad. Burrow 30-1, and Goff 40-1. So obviously Lamar right now is the favorite, and hilariously so. For whatever reason, on FanDuel right now, he currently has a Falcons logo next to his name. So maybe he got traded to Atlanta overnight and nobody knew about it. But so Lamar's obviously the favorite right now. Where would you actually price Lamar in comparison to Josh Allen?
Well, we've talked about this many times about how like futures odds are so volatile, and like literally one bit of money on anybody, or like not like even like that significant of coin on somebody, could really shift the odds. But I think Lamar definitely deserves to be the favorite. But like again, like we're in week 11. Like these odds, you literally look at Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts. Like you don't think, not even you don't think. Like I'm telling you, whoever wins that game Thursday night, like you're seeing a shift immediately between those two. Like they're flipping. Like that's how volatile these things are. Like I could look back to even like last year. I got it on a Brock Purdy like at like 11-1. He got down to like a 2-1 before that Ravens game on Christmas, and I was like, "Yo, like he wins this game, it's probably like a lock." Guess what? He loses that game, they get slaughtered, and he doesn't have a chance in hell of winning the award. So I think the top three guys, it really is a race between the top three. I like Burrow, obviously down at 30-1, but again, they've lost every game they've needed to win so far, and that doesn't mean it's going to continue to happen. But I think it really is a three-man race. Like Goff is Sunday Night Football showing, obviously, last week was definitely a backbreaker for him. I know you were not like screaming from the rooftops about him, but like at the price beginning of the season, you're like, bro, like, you know, he's going to lead probably the number 1 seed. Like you should probably look into it. But I think he kind of killed himself. And we're talking about now the three best quarterbacks in football with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. And I know Mahomes' counting stats don't look good, but if the Chiefs go 16-1, 15-2, or even 14-3, like I think it might be Mahomes' award by default because of their record. They're going to be leading the AFC. But I think it's going to come down to, if they all have similar records, it's really going to come down to the numbers. And I think the voters do. I don't want to say they're biased, but like they are human beings voting for it. It's not like it's, you know, given based on certain criteria. It's just human beings voting on these things. Like the team that has the 1 seed, the quarterback of that 1 seed, if their numbers are comparable or even slightly worse than the 2 and 3 seed, like they're going to give it to him. So I don't know if it's worth betting one of the top three at this point, given their prices, but it is a three-man race at this point. And I think Jaden and Hurts can boost their stock depending on who wins, especially Jalen Hurts, because I was huge on Philly. I was looked wrong to start, but obviously now it looks a little bit that prediction of them being the best team in football is alive and well, realistically. And he deserves it from his rushing standpoint. But again, his numbers aren't going to light the page on fire like Lamar's didn't last year. So I wouldn't be really betting down the board here. I would kind of stick to those top three guys, and they're the chalk at this point, not just because of what they've done on the field, because of who they are, because of what their teams are doing. Like there's a reason they're the top three. And I guess it's nice to see the top three are really the three best quarterbacks, in my opinion.
All right. I have a very interesting take here. First of all, I am in agreement with you. I think coming into the year, this was always kind of a top-heavy award. Before I get to the top, I'm going to actually work backwards. I think Jared Goff at 40-1, who, by the way, was 8-1 coming into the week, drifting 5 times his price from pre to post game, is ridiculous. This is referring back to the recency bias. It's poison. It's not good. Like this isn't week 16. This is week 10, which, by the way, they still managed to find a way to go into Houston on Sunday night on the road and win. So realistically, Jared Goff, who has 16 passing touchdowns to 9 picks, like obviously 5 picks is a disaster. One of them, I mean, realistically, out of 5 picks, I would say 3 of them were, weren't necessarily his fault. One was tipped at the line. The first one was tipped at the line off the edge rusher. The second one, honestly, should have been a fumble, but it never hit the ground. Like it should have been an interception, but it could have easily been a fumble. The third one was a Hail Mary before half. The last 2 were real, but Goff's numbers right now, he has an opportunity to probably be in the 35 plus touchdown range, around 4,000 yards. Assuming Goff doesn't really go over that 12 interception number, let's give him 13 or 14. And the Lions are the 1 seed and they've won 15 games. How is Jared Goff not in consideration being the best quarterback or one of the best quarterbacks on the best team in the NFC? That's number one. I'm not saying he's going to win, but this is an idea. The whole idea that Jared Goff, because of 1 5-pick game with 7 games to go, is out of it is ludicrous. Remember what happened with Jalen Hurts 2 years ago, okay? He was the runaway after 10 games, and he folded and he lost. Burrow, I love Burrow, but, he's going to have to win the division. His numbers are going to be off the hook, but, remember Justin Herbert a couple of years ago, 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, didn't win. Kyler Murray, he's not going to win. Brock Purdy, probably not going to win. Jaden Daniels, our guy. I love JD. I actually cashed out of my JD ticket after the game. I don't think he's going to win because of his stats aren't going to be competitive enough, but I still wish him well. Jalen Hurts, I think, is interesting at the moment. Mahomes' numbers are not very good, right? But let's say, for instance, KC goes undefeated. If they get past Buffalo this week, things get very interesting. Then there's really only 2 teams that might be able to take them out. If Buffalo goes 17-0 this year, KC goes 17-0, Eric, I think Mahomes jumps right to the top of the list, even if his numbers are moderate. Josh Allen is not performing to the level that we have known. But this year, in a year where I've counted Buffalo out preseason, a lot of people are with me that didn't think the Bills were going to be that good. Allen is finding a way to carry this team. So with the guy who's got 18 touchdowns total, I think he's got now 5 interceptions, 4 or 5. If Allen's pushing 40 total touchdowns and his interception count is under 12, and he's got like 4,500 plus total yards, and the Bills are a 1 or a 2 seed, I don't know how you don't give it to him. Whereas Lamar, while his numbers are great, I think everybody's overreacting. The box score looks great, and he's played well. He's done what he's had to do. Fair point. But what people don't realize, most of Lamar's, if I'm not mistaken, the Ravens are second in YAC. So a lot of his receivers are doing most of the work. The amount of separation he's had before coming into this week, the Ravens receivers were leading the NFL with 2.45 separation yards in targets. I think a lot of it has to do with some luck. There's been a lot of dropped interceptions. You saw in the game against Cincinnati where Cam Taylor-Britt dropped a key interception with 5 minutes left. Now, right now, I think Lamar is definitely up there, but my question to you, and I apologize for going long-winded, but I had to get a lot off my chest. Let's say Lamar finishes with 40 to 45 total touchdowns, but the Ravens are the 3 seed, and Allen is a 1 or a 2 seed and has 38 total touchdowns. Do you think the voters say, hey, Allen, we haven't given him an MVP yet. He's been due. There's been seasons he could have had it. We gave it to Lamar last year, and he didn't deserve it. Now the Bills had the higher seed. They were a 1 or 2 seed, which is huge. There has not been many quarterbacks that have won an MVP that has not been a 1 or a 2 seed in the last 20-plus years.
Well, that's why this game against Pittsburgh is so big for Lamar. Because if they lose this, and they don't, if Lamar can have 80 total touchdowns, but if they win the wild card, he's not winning. He's not winning the award. So the Ravens have to win this game on Sunday and make a push. And same thing for Mahomes and Allen. It goes hand in hand because obviously they play each other this week. Like I said, if the Chiefs go 17-0, 16-1, 15-2, maybe 14-3, like it's probably Mahomes' no matter what, even though his numbers probably won't look as good as Lamar's or Josh Allen's. But no, I don't disagree with you at all. Like Josh Allen there's a reason why, again, these 3 are the way that they are. I know we talk about ad nauseum how quickly these things flip. Like Week 11, Lamar's plus 110, Josh is plus 400. Say they both win, we're going to see Lamar plus 110, Josh plus 225. Like, you know what I mean? And that's just week 12. Then the Bills go play the Niners. And that's going to be another huge game for this MVP market in terms of where Josh is going to sit. So I don't think that they would. I think they're going to give it to the 1 and 2 seed. I think in the case you just made, it all depends on the Chiefs' record there. And I guess you would have to be assuming that the Bills beat the Chiefs this week to really be confident. Because again, if Mahomes goes 17-0, 16-1, 15-2, it's by default. And I could be wrong, but that's where my head's at.
Plus, I think it's an interesting point. What happens if, like, there's a lot of different factors, right? Let's say the Bills beat the Chiefs this week. The Bills are favored at home in Buffalo. Obviously Mahomes, underdog, 12-1 ATS, like all those stats. Regardless of that, more towards the future. Say Buffalo pulls this one out. Allen beats Mahomes, and the Chiefs end up going 16-1 this year. And Allen is the only quarterback to beat Patrick Mahomes. And the numbers are good. I mean, that is an accolade in and of itself, stopping the perfect season. I'm of the belief, and I'll be honest, I'll be 100%. I don't want Lamar to win an MVP. He got one last year. He didn't deserve it. I had a Josh Allen ticket. I thought the kid was due for one. Now, I think if the Ravens are the 5 seed, I think it's the end of discussion. I think it has to be. If they're the 3 seed, if KC Buffalo are jostling for 1-2, but Baltimore's 3, I still think it's got to be Allen or Mahomes. Or God.
Goes back to how important these games are for the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens this week. Because, like you said, if the Ravens lose, they're 7-4. The Steelers are obviously 8-2 and are had that extra half game there, or that full game in the AFC North. Then that's going to kill them. Like if the Ravens lose, that plus 110 is probably going to plus 11-1 after this game. That's how big this game is.
Not 11-1, maybe like 4-1.
I don't know. I think we could see a massive dips.
Yeah, but that's not the second game, though. If that was the second game and they lost the second time, that's a different story. But they have a rematch.
Yeah, but still, the ground they have to make up because they're currently already back. It's like similar to like the Washington Philly situation right now. Like Washington on Thursday, right now, if they win, they're a half game up. But if they lose, they're 2.5 games back in the NFC North. So even though it's not the final say-all, end-all, be-all game for whether or not they're going to win or lose the AFC North, I think the odds, like we've talked about, will over-adjust. And if the Ravens lose this football game, 100%.
Well, let's look at it this way. So the Ravens are at the Steelers this week. That is a very tough game, right? Very tough game. Then they're at the Chargers. I don't know, Harbaugh Bowl. I mean, I don't think the Chargers are nearly as good. I think the Ravens are going to win that one. The travel is tough, but then they come home to play Philly. We know what they do against an NFC team, but I actually think I don't think Philly is as good as they are on paper. But I think matchup-wise, they actually could favor decently against Baltimore. I think they can score against the Ravens defense for sure. And I think the Eagles defense now, and especially in the secondary, has some athletes so where they can kind of contain a little bit. Slow down is probably more the word against the Ravens. Then they're at the Giants, probably a smash win. Then they're home to the Steelers, which is Christmas, the week before Christmas. Then they're at Houston. That one's interesting because, you'd think Stroud and Nico's back, but of course the Ravens got the beautiful end of the stick again because at that game, that'll be the third game the Texans will be playing in 10 days. And then they finish off at home against the Browns. So I do see a few losses in here. Now, obviously, it depends what happens with the Steelers. But in any case, I think it was a fair point to bring that up. I know we ran a little bit long here, but let's get to some Week 11 bets. What's your favorite look here heading into the new week?
I lost my notes. 1 second. Looking at my numbers. So I did my numbers today, not like along with the show. And this is a situation where I actually have a lot of things pretty off market. So I'm not sure what adjustments I need to make. Like I was very shocked to see that Denver was actually laying points against Atlanta, though obviously again I probably am underrating each home field advantage a little bit. But I'm gonna pull two. One, I'm not even gonna explain because I'm sure we're gonna talk in more detail. But you're giving me Patrick Mahomes at plus money. I don't care about who's the better team. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs. That's done over with. Like I said when he was an underdog earlier this season, if I lose a betting on the best quarterback in our potentially soon to be in the history of the league, I'll go down on that any day of the week. So I'm betting on the Kansas City Chiefs. And looking at my numbers, I think, and I don't know if I'm overreacting here, but I don't really think I am. I kind of like some ugly games this week, starting off with the New England Patriots. I've been so down on them. I've talked about how horrible they are. I know obviously they won last week, but they beat a horrible team. Obviously the Rams offense is an offense that should be able to take advantage of New England, especially considering not only just the offense, but the defensively, like the way that they've been getting pressure. Jared Verse is legitimate. Like they have a really good defensive line, a young defensive core. But I think that their secondary for the Rams is susceptible enough for Drake May to go out there and make enough plays. And I make this game 3 and it's 4.5. So seeing them getting over that key number of 3, and obviously having off of Monday Night Football, long travel for the Rams is part of that as well, factored in too. I think 4.5 is a little too much with Los Angeles.
Yeah, I like that. I like that spot there. The Monday night, which I think was something I brought up to you early in the year. I wanted to follow these Monday nighters, and it's been a little bit rough for the Monday night. Surprisingly, actually, Tampa played San Francisco very tough coming off the Monday nighter. To be honest, I mean, 3 missed field goals helped, and you saw Kansas City sluggish against Denver, so. The Rams, not only off the short week, got their asses kicked, but that's a tough travel, LA to Foxborough. So I am with you there. KC, yeah, we took them when they were dogs at San Francisco. I'd probably take them with the points. Probably take them on the money line. Great teaser leg, but the team that I'm with this week is going to be the Bengals. I like the Bengals. They're a short dog in LA. The Chargers are very not so much a home field team. They have the opposing crowd always at their throats. But, this Chargers team hasn't beaten anybody good. They've played a soft schedule. Give it to them. Like, their defense looks great. Herbert's developing. It's kind of like he started over as a quarterback. He learned to be a quarterback again under Jim Harbaugh, and is kind of building momentum. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, you got Lab McConkey. But I think this is a spot for Cincinnati where their season's on the line. It's do or die. If you lose this game, especially with the Chargers team that's fighting for a playoff spot, and you don't have the matchup advantage with the tiebreaker, I think their season's pretty much done. And this offense for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they have been playing way too extraordinary for them not to be in the playoffs. But I got news for you. If you think the Bengals are going to win this game, I like them to make the playoff ticket. And I will keep an eye on them throughout the next 4 weeks or so. If they're still alive, I like a ticket for them to win the AFC. Because if they get in, they are going to be a nightmare. Because there's nobody that's covering Burrow Chase when they're at their best.
Yeah, no,
Eric, sorry.
Just on that game, like I'm making a PK, and obviously 1.5. It's not like you're getting a ton of points there, but I'm not in disagreement with you whatsoever that Cincinnati is certainly live, and that should be a hell of a football game on Sunday night.
All right, let's get to Thursday Night Football. We are 30 minutes in, and we are kicking off our first game breakdown. It's TNF. Very excited. We might have a back-to-back good Thursday night game on our hands. It's the Washington Commanders, our boy JD, Mr. Jaden Daniels, at the Philadelphia Eagles, 3.5. Now, you know how I feel about 3.5. This was actually the first week where it really didn't work out. Fair enough, the lines didn't close at a 3.5-point favorite. There was somebody else that did and lost. I forget who it is off the top of my head. I apologize. But Brian Robinson's back in this game. The Eagles, to me, are susceptible. I think Washington has a good path if they're continuing to run the football and have JD hit some big plays with the play action. Their defense is getting better every week. I know there was an insane catch by George Pickens. There was that late one-on-one Mike Williams deep ball, and there was a fumbled punt that put the Steelers basically at like the 10-yard line for Washington. Marshawn Lattimore's out. Where do you have Washington this week?
So I make it 3.25, so I do see value on Washington 3.5, but I actually I like the under. I know that we should be expecting a fun game. I'm not saying obviously it's because it's the under. We're talking about a total of 48.5, 49. So it's not like I think it's gonna be an ugly game. Like the game ends 47. That's still a fun football game that we got to watch. But I think Philly is like it's not. I think like Philly does run the football a ton. Washington's defense, despite how all the conversation about how bad their secondary is, like no Marshall Lattimore is obviously tough, but I've never even seen him play in Washington, so it's hard to even quantify like what his impact will be because they're going to have to move some guys around, like Micah Sanders, Benjamin St-Juste, etc. But the Commanders, they run the ball at an average rate in a neutral game state, so they like to run the football clearly. And Philly's defense, I know that they've played a weaker schedule of opposing offenses lately, but like it's not like they've just been like pretty good since like week 5, week 6. Like they've been like the best defensive pass EPA defense in the last 5 weeks. Like it's not like they're just like, okay, they're playing better, they're good. Like no, they've been lights out. And something last week where I got killed on is I expected a lot of more JD5 runs last week with the Steelers pass rush, and instead Cliff stuck to the quick passing game. So I think considering Philly's going to be more keened in on obviously trying to avoid deep balls, I think their offensive philosophy for Washington is going to be more in the quick passing game. They do love to run the football, and Philly also loves to run the football. I think it's going to be a lot of ticking clock in this one. And the one thing that kind of concerns me about maybe the under is that Washington's defense, you played the Steelers. Like it's going to be a tough physical game. Now they have to come from that into a Philly team who is obviously going to be really well prepared in the trenches as well. But the Bears against top defenses, like we talked about off air about the Bears, like they only scored 18 points, couldn't score in the red zone. It's been an issue at times, even against the Giants week 2, Tampa week 1. Like, it's 10 weeks later at this point. But considering that these teams are kind of slower paced teams, the Thursday night ugliness could either lead to defensive ugliness where, teams are scoring at will, or these teams can't really get the ball, moving the ball well offensively. I think we're going to see the latter where the teams are going to struggle more offensively with these defenses locked in. And again, we're talking about a 48.5-point total, not like a very low total by any means. So actually the under here. What about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm having a tough time with this one. It's not like it's a far ride, where you might have a team like, say, the Raiders have to fly down to Miami on a Thursday night. Those two teams playing this week. But say this game was Thursday and the Vegas had to do that long trip in such a short week. This is an hour. So it's a hostile environment for sure for anybody that's ever been to the Link. But I like Washington to stay tight here. This might be one of the rare times I go against a 3.5. Nothing official yet, but I'm leaning Washington here. I'm really pulling for the Commanders. I don't think the Eagles are as good as what they've shown lately. I just don't. They're obviously very talented. Jalen Hurts has played better. Arthur Brown, Devontae, Gotti, Saquon. The defense has some horses, but I don't know, man. Washington always seems to play Philadelphia tough. Jaden Daniels is somebody that they haven't seen before. I think we're going to see a lot more runs from JD5. Brian Robinson's back. I'm going to expect a lot of totes from him and some ISO single Terry McLaurin downfield shots. The defense is improving. I do expect this to be a more on the side of a slugfest as opposed to a shootout. So I think at the very minimum, this might be the first time I go on the side of plus 3.5, not minus 3.5.
I gotcha. Like I said, I agree. It'd be more. I'm anticipating more of a slugfest as well, rather than a high-flying affair with one team being able to get a massive lead and hold on to it. I don't think that'll be the case.
All right, let's get Jacksonville at Detroit, a 13.5-point favorite, biggest number of the year. Looks like Trevor Lawrence is out again. You laying the 13.5 here?
Not touching. Look at some props for Detroit. I know you're saying where you prefer to lay it with a big number rather than take the points. There's a reason why they're getting 13.5 points. My power ratings, though, I could be off because I didn't watch all of Mac Jones just yet. I only make it 11, so it's just obviously, can I somehow find 2.5 points somewhere to justify it? Absolutely. We know what the Lions do at home. We know what they do against bad teams. Jacksonville is certainly a bad team at this point. Obviously, Mac Jones, he doesn't give that because the Lions' issue is their secondary. You can move the football in Detroit if you're good enough. And Mac, if it was Trevor Lawrence playing and we saw 13.5, which we wouldn't see, we'd probably be closer to 11.5. I'd be more inclined because he does have the ability to make those big plays. Because the Jaguars' offense, if you even look at the numbers with Lawrence, he loves to get a lot of hate. Some of it deservedly so. Some of it, he still can move the football really well and generate explosive plays, which is massive. So that doesn't even matter because he's not playing. But I want nothing to do with this one. I don't know about you, Johnny.
I think I'd be on the side of our guys, the Lions, dude. I think I would. I want to see what's up with Sam Laporta. I know there was Terry Arnold left the game briefly. I want to check out the injury report a little bit more because when I'm laying a number this big, I want to make sure that the Lions are at full strength. Because you know what? The truth is I picture this game more of a Lions-Titans vibe where they beat them by 5 scores. The Lions put up a 50 beat. Now, maybe the books are trying to get everybody to think that way. But the truth is, Mac Jones did not play well. They scored 7 points at home against Minnesota, who has gradually played worse every week since they lost their first game. The Lions, they're a team that right now, man, they are just so hard to beat. You have to do so many things well to beat them. They gave the ball away 5 times to Houston on the road, a great defense, and still won. Now, maybe Jacksonville shows up here. Maybe they do, but I got to be honest, man. I think I would take a shot and lay with Detroit. I would even have fun with it and maybe go minus 20 to see if they could win by 3 touchdowns if I was trying to have a little bit of fun. Obviously, there's a world where there's a backdoor cover, and Jacksonville can stay inside this number. But I think as of right now, if the injury report checks out, I'm going to be laying it with the Lions here, believe it or not. All right, next game, we have Green Bay, 5.5. Not a Royal Mint spot. It is an inverted Royal Mint spot at the Chicago Bears. What do you see in this game?
So the Bears, obviously, we could do a whole hour episode on the Chicago Bears and everything that's going on. Obviously, Shane Waldron getting fired is not going to fix all their problems. Something I remember on this show earlier, not even preseason, where I talked about not loving Shane Waldron hire. And you can't just say it's all his fault. The team itself, clearly they're in a spot where it's the locker room is lost. Caleb Williams, as much as you want to talk about Waldron, I watched that game because I had the over in the Bears Patriots last week. So I thought against the bad defense, maybe we could see Caleb Williams look good. Instead, he gets sacked 9 times and looks awful. The dude is approaching, and again, I'm not saying that this means his career is going to stink and he's not going to ever be good at football, but he's approaching the status of the Anthony Richardsons and the Bryce Youngs, where completing a 5-yard out route isn't possible for him. He's overthrowing or underthrowing receivers that are literally, he's calling height, getting the football, trying to throw a quick out, and he's overthrowing players or he's underthrowing players. So I have no confidence in the Bears. From a pure numbers perspective, though, I think this is a little inflated. But I think that Chicago is probably worse than I think that they are. Green Bay obviously has been, much to my surprise, I knew obviously they came in and did what they did in the playoffs last year. It's just like, okay, like one of those situations, maybe you got to pump the brakes because, those things happen in the NFL. Dallas, we talked about being frauds all year this year, and not like we thought they were juggernauts or anything last year. But they've proved me wrong, Green Bay. Their defense is amazing. I know they switched coordinators. It's been a huge help. Jordan Love, when he's making plays, is making plays. But Caleb Williams, bro, like at this point, like the Packers are a team that can win by margin. So that's why like laying the 5.5 would make sense. Like Caleb Williams is approaching the point where it's like I'd rather like just lose more money on betting on Patrick Mahomes than like lose money trying to galaxy brain and bet on Caleb Williams at this point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, dude, I think that's why it's frustrating because the Bears really have a good roster, and it's frustrating to see them not succeed. You don't even score a touchdown at home against the Patriots. It's more problems than just Shane Waldron. Eberflus, I kept calling for it last year. I was saying in the early part of last year when they kept losing, I'm like, they got to get rid of this guy. He's not good. And then the worst thing that can happen, and I was talking about this with my friends today at lunch, guys I work with. The worst thing to happen to the Giants was winning that playoff game. Gave everybody false hope, set their organization back by 5 years. Same concept applies for the Bears. They were a couple games away from sneaking into the playoffs. They blew a ton of leads. They were without Justin Fields for about a month. Well, if everything goes right, we're going to be back in the playoffs next year. They dumped Fields, which I didn't agree with, by the way. I wanted them to keep Fields. I wanted that. And then trade back, see if we get Marv and whatever. But now, I don't think Caleb Williams is I'm not saying he's a bust. I think the development is not there. You can't expect a guy as great as he was in college to immediately come up and just start balling. You have to have some sort of development. It's the same way with basketball and baseball prospects. You can have all the talent in the world. You can be good at the college level because the pros is another thing. I don't think they're there right now. If they step up in this game and cover and win, so be it. Congratulations. I could see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. Division rivalries are something different, but you have the Packers coming off a bye. Hopefully Love and everybody's rested up, ready to go. I think this is a Green Bay Packers spot all day here. Rams, Patriots, we touched on. You like the Patriots. You think value at 4.5 with the Rams coming off a short week, long travel. I am tending to agree with you. I think the Drake May rushing aspect is something that can really help the Patriots. But you know what the crazy thing is? Part of me wonders, like, is Sean McVay going to have 2 bad offensive outings in a row?
They're not, especially considering no, the more concerning thing about Sean McVay, which is hard to really nitpick about a Super Bowl winning coach at this point, who's like very, very, very good at coaching. Like, there are some guys who, made it to the mountaintop, but aren't necessarily a great coach like Sean McVay is. I'm more concerned about his like in-game decision-making with like kicking terrible field goals and being so adamant about that. Like, but like you said, like this is a whole different kind of animal when going against the defense that played their best game by a landslide last week in the Patriots. Like, I don't expect a similar output, but I know Miami is a blitz-heavy team, and they do have a solid defensive line, but the way that they were getting pressure on Stafford, and Stafford being someone who historically has been good with pressure, but this year has not been so good with pressure. A lot of it does have to do with, Nakua and Kupp missing time, and those are his outlets there. But the Patriots having, Gonzalez to shut down one of them, I think Drake May at this point, like he looks to be pretty good. And I know that the Patriots, like they have trouble in the red zone. They still have terrible skill players. Again, I haven't bet this yet. Just from my numbers perspective, this is the biggest discrepancy that I think at least makes some sense. But I do agree with you that asking the Rams to shit the bed twice in a row is probably more unlikely than asking the Patriots to play really, really well twice in a row, because playing the Bears and the Rams are 2 entirely different animals, and I don't expect the Patriots defense to have as much success. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe I'm coming around and maybe I am drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit because I am leaning that way. I haven't played it yet, but I don't know. I think the Patriots with Drake Man offense, like it's a really different kind of vibe, and this Rams secondary is not good. So if he can make some plays even with the poor receivers, it could be a good situation.
You know, one thing I've been thinking about, and I alluded to it earlier, but it was a monster dog week last week. Dogs with fleas, dogs were barking all over the place. Do you think it shifts back the other way? Do you think this zig when that zag happens, or do you think it's a little bit more split?
I think it's probably a little bit more split. Again, we've talked about this many times. We've seen it with our own two eyes, everybody. Like there are weeks where the favorites are 11-1 and straight up, but then the weeks where the dogs are 11-1 against the spread. Eventually it's going to be a 50-50 split, and then trying to base your handicapping around what week you think it's going to be, I don't think is going to bode well overall for somebody that's just I'm trying to I 100% agree with zigging what people zag in general for Rams Dolphins. I don't think I saw a single soul on Miami. I actually had them in a teaser with Kansas City for this week, so I'm still waiting to cash that out. But I do agree in general zig when people zag, especially in the NFL, but I don't think that trying to cherry pick the weeks where it's going to be a dog week versus a favorite week is going to bode well for anybody.
Fair point. Cleveland at New Orleans. What a mess. 1.5 points. Let me know what you got here.
I kind of like the Browns. The Saints had the post coach, the interim coach bump last week. Obviously played a familiar foe in your Atlanta Falcons and took care of business. Both of us have talked about how Atlanta is an overrated team and is a team that, despite the change in quarterback and coach and DC and whatnot, they still are a team that is prone to botching. And I know that's going to be give me some numbers, but it is a thing. Some teams just right now don't organizationally, I guess I should say, don't have things pat down as they should have it. And the Browns team, I know they're coming off a bye. Jameis Winston is not gonna. I don't think the Saints are gonna be able to get the immense amounts of pressure on Jameis. He's going to struggle. It's obviously going to be clear conditions in New Orleans, and I think the Saints defense, they beat the Falcons in a very inspired game, but they're still injured defensively, especially in the secondary, where Jameis is going to take a lot of shots. Of course, being him, and if they do go his way rather than turn into turnover-worthy interceptions, it could get ugly. But I don't think the Saints are going to be able to just move the ball. This Browns defense, as we've talked about many times, was never going to be as good as last year because they were great last year. But they're still middle of the pack. They're still an slightly above, but above average defense. So I have a heavy lean toward the Browns right now. I haven't played anything yet at all for this week, but if I'm making a pick here, I'm taking Cleveland. What about you, Johnny?
I think Cleveland's interesting. It is Jameis Winston revenge week. By the way, where he didn't really get that much burn in New Orleans, but I might be interested in a little Jameis magic, maybe some 300 yards, 2-3 tutties. But I don't have anything right now. I need a little bit more of a look here. I do like that Cleveland is coming off the bye. For me, that's something that allows a little bit more preparation for Jameis instead of having to kind of be thrown into the wilds the way he was. So he gets a full couple weeks to prepare. More TBD on that later. I don't know if I'm going to have anything, though. Vikings, 5.5 points at Titans, another inverted Royal Mint spot. I got to be honest, dude. Vikings aren't looking so hot these days. Where do you see this one going?
So pure numbers for me right now, I have it at Minnesota minus 5.5. So I'm literally right on market here. I haven't been one to be on I've pounded the tail for Jacksonville a couple of times this year. I'm they're not as bad as a record. The Titans were never a team that I was on that similar wavelength with. And Minnesota punching above their weight class. I mean, it was just it was obvious. Anybody could really see that this was a team that was overachieving. But Will Levis is so bad. Brian Flores is going to throw the kitchen sink at him from a blitzing perspective. And I can't trust a guy who's probably going to turn the football over. I know he played decently against Los Angeles, but this Brian Flores blitz scheme and getting all up into Levis's face is going to potentially cause massive issues. And the Titans, I actually took them last week for the first time all year, plus the 8.5. Obviously, did not get to the window there, but I was anticipating kind of like, the regression from the Titans side because their turnover numbers are so bad in terms of them giving the ball away and not taking it back away. And those are things that over the course of the season do regress to the mean and do, end up coming closer to 50-50. But with Will Levis in their center, like that's not something that I expect to really change. But on the flip side, Darnold is throwing more turnover-worthy footballs. He's not making as good quick reads. He's taking more sacks. He's looking like, Sam Darnold. But and the Titans defense is solid. It's not great, but it's not devoid of talent, a la some of the other teams we've spoken about, like the Patriots, even like obviously Carolina, etc. But I'm right on market here, so I don't have anything that I love. But again, like at this point, it's just like, yeah, you could obviously I'd prefer to bet numbers over teams, like undoubtedly. But we're talking about such an efficient market. Like I'd rather just not bet on the Tennessee Titans and move on with my day. But I can see the Titans keeping it close. I'm right on market, so I'm not touching this one.
You know what I find interesting? This is how crazy it is, by the way. So the Titans have played now 9 games. They have scored exactly 17 points in 5 of them. Their total points is set at 16.5 this week. I don't know if I'm back on the Vikings. I just it's insane how bad they've been playing. Sam Darnold has definitely looked like the guy that we thought he was. Their defense, I don't think it's as good as they showed the first few weeks, but I do think it is still a very good defense. I don't think it's elite, but I think it's very good. I might be tempted here to take a team total under for the Titans at 16.5. Kind of stay away from that, that 17 mark that they've had. Against Buffalo, they only scored 10. Against the Lions, they only scored 14. Against the Packers, they only scored 14. So, there's been some games where they've played teams that are in the sort of higher tier of talent, and they have been held under that 17. So I think the Titans total point prop is something that I'm definitely taking a look at.
Definitely get it for sure. Just again with me, it's just like Ford's going to blitz the hell out of Will Levis, and like at this point, Will Levis PFF rating against pressure. All quarterbacks have played. I don't know the exact number of snaps that the cutoff is. He's not 30th, 31st, even 32nd. He's 42nd. It's horrible.
Yeah. Interesting news. Indianapolis Colts now 3.5-point dogs at the New York Jets, who just got their asses clapped like a round of applause at the Arizona Cardinals. Who, Eric, what are the Arizona Cardinals?
Most volatile team in the league. Most variance.
Yes. Yep. That's what we saw. Now the Colts had a couple games with Joe Flacco and Shane Steichen, who changes his mind very quickly. He's going back to Anthony Richardson. Eric, I got to say, it would be the funniest thing in the world for Anthony Richardson to come off the bench, show up, put up 3 bones, 3 tutties.
I don't know if Anthony Richardson is capable of throwing for 300 passing yards, barring like throwing absolute like moon shots to Alec Pierce that just get through. But I do understand what you're saying. I talked a lot of shit about Robert Saleh for not just this season, but for the last 3 seasons about how overrated of a coach he is. And I'm sure everyone's seen on Twitter now how the Jets defense has actually taken like significant strides backwards after him leaving. So there's just no like light at the end of the tunnel currently for New York. Again, I'm not surprised. This is a team, Johnny, I talked about for months leading into the season and all season long about how the team is going to shit the bed somehow. In terms of this game specifically, I do think we'll see Richardson play better, like playing like, his career depends on it, because it kind of does, not just this singular game, obviously, but this is the start of a stretch that is going to be very significant for his immediate future. And on the Colts front, in terms of like, Shane Steichen, I don't think you could blame Shane Steichen. I don't think he's making these decisions on who was starting. on who should be playing. But it's also, we can't ignore how bad Richardson was at times. Like he, again, was having trouble throwing a 5-yard out route to a wide open receiver on a play where like they were literally giving him cushion to allow them to make that 5-yard catch. You couldn't throw it to him. But that being said, Richardson was always going to be a project. He's an explosive athlete. The Colts need to get him going in the run game. And I know, like, I don't like to say, like, oh, like somebody's could be injured, etc. But like the reason why Richardson's also had so much trouble maintaining, his play or maintaining good play is because he's been getting hurt so often. And until they really can unlock his legs, like the way that they did to start last year when he looked great, and sometimes at the beginning of this season, it's just hard to trust that he's going to really be throwing the ball. But the Jets right now, they're a dead team walking. You want to talk about crappy locker rooms? I couldn't imagine what it's like hanging out in that locker room right now. It's probably miserable being there. And, I'm not surprised by it. In terms of just pure numbers, looking at this, I have it at Jets -4. So I'm right in market. But again, I don't know what we're going to see from Richardson. Another situation where I'm not backing the Jets by any means. I'm glad to sit on the sideline from this one.
Yeah, I think so too. There's no props out yet. I think I might be interested in taking a little Richardson prop rushing, maybe in the 40-yard territory. I think, he might get back to doing what he did the first couple starts of last year, of his rookie year, where if he's in trouble or he sees an opening, he's going to take it because, listen, even though the passing has a long way to go, he just wants to string positive plays together. And if he does that, then and limits the mistakes, then Indianapolis is going to have a chance to win this game. But I think there's just too much volatility all around in this game. I don't really know if I want a piece of anything, at least at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see what we got here. But it's definitely bad for the Jets. It's a shame too, because I was rooting for them. I really was. All right. We're heading into, excuse me, sorry, here we go. We're heading into, for some reason, it's a 1:00 game. Baltimore Ravens at Pittsburgh Steelers. Ravens, a 3-point favorite. My guy, Cam Bryce, a Baltimore guy. We go back and forth. We actually first started interacting because he was talking about my boy Vance Honeycutt from UNC. First rounder was a steal and fell to the Orioles at 22nd, although I feel he might have been the best all-around player in college baseball this past year. Cam says Ravens -10, lock it in, fellas. You know what, Cameron? You're biased. You're a biased Ravens fan. You're a biased Baltimore person, by the way. Eric, a 3-point favorite here, extra rest, on the road, in one of the most hostile environments you can go in. I am of the belief that unlike Cincinnati, Baltimore, which should have been a split. Honestly, it could have been a Cincinnati sweep. I think Pittsburgh, because of Mike Tomlin's just experience and wisdom, is 1,000 times better coached than Cincinnati. There's a lot of these dumb mistakes and stupid player overreactions that Cincinnati does that Pittsburgh won't do because of Mike Tomlin. I think it's time that the Ravens kind of regress to the mean here with the luck that they've been getting. They probably should have lost to Cincinnati both times. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt drops an interception. You have Lamar, who was dead in the first half, throws a 6-yard out route to Tylan Wallace, who tiptoes 84 yards down the sideline, breaking 2 tackles. He drops an interception, Cam Taylor-Britt does, with 5 minutes left. The egregious officiating on that 2-point conversion, whether you agree with it or not, I think there's going to be some regression coming. I feel like it's going to be a tough matchup for a Ravens secondary that just got cooked by Jamar Chase, going up against George Pickens, going up against Pat Freiermuth, going up against maybe Mike Wallace reincarnated. But I think their defense is going to hold down this Baltimore offense enough. I don't think they're going to stop them, but instead of the Ravens scoring 34 points, I think maybe Baltimore scores 23-24. I could see this Steelers winning 27-24 kind of game. What say you?
Yeah, no, I definitely look at Steelers with the points. Like, I'm not in a divisional game like this, considering these two teams, their histories, the way they know how to play each other, etc. Like, every point is valuable, and I would definitely look at the Pittsburgh Steelers +3. Also, kind of like the over. I think a more interesting conversation for, like, generally speaking, is when is Russell Wilson going to fall off a cliff? It's not like he's been lighting the world on fire since starting for the Steelers, but he's obviously been very good. But their offense is very predicated on him connecting on a deep ball here and there, him throwing some short routes and hoping that George Pickens can break one, or Jalen Warren out of the backfield can catch one with that bowling ball he is running through people, wrecking ball, and picking up gains. Like it's fun. It's fun to watch when it works, but I think eventually it can't work much longer. It's not like Russ is out here. Like some of those deep balls he throws are still gorgeous, like vintage Russ looking deep balls. But the times when the Camaros roll over them, they're just harmless incompletions. And then when you have Benjamin St-Juste on that final third down where they scored the eventual game-winning touchdown, even in 10 yards of coverage, he just, bad player. But digression aside, I think the more interesting combo for like the AFC North and the AFC playoff picture is when is Russ going to stop being kind of good right now? Because currently the Steelers are a good football team. There's no other way to put it. It's not like they're a bad team like last year where like the Tomlin voodoo was just coming up and they're just finding their ways to win. Like they are a good overall team. But losing Alex Highsmith is going to be big for this defense. Kyle Hamilton probably out for Baltimore is also big. I think the way that these teams are constructed, we could see points. I think we're going to see them moving the ball, and I don't think we're going to see a classic Steelers-Ravens that's like a 9-6, field goal fest. I don't. It would be the most classic thing for that to actually be the case. But considering the makeup of these two teams currently, I don't think that's going to be the case. And then on the Russ factor, I do think Russ is due to come back down to earth, but I don't think this is the week for it, with the Ravens secondary being so susceptible. So I think we see a higher scoring game, and I'm taking points here with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but do you think Pittsburgh wins this game?
I think they're 100% live to win. I'm not going to go on
record. No. And I'm not putting this on record. This is not like you're official. You're locked in here. Forget the point spread. Let's act like we're in sixth grade again. It's at the lunch table. We don't know anything about point spreads. We don't know anything about gambling. Who do you think wins this week? Who would you pick to fucking win this week? In
that situation, I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens.
You motherfucker. You're going to take the Ravens to win?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's definitely plausible, man. I mean, it 100% is. I'm of the belief that the Steelers are different from the Bengals in discipline. There's a lot of things that do not go on the scoreboard that the Steelers do 10 times better than what the Bengals do. I mean, I think these two teams are going to split. So I'm going to take the Steelers because I just feel like, Pittsburgh isn't as good as what they've been putting on with Russell Wilson. They're not. It's so due for a regression. But I do believe in a game like this, with the defense definitely leaning in favor of the Steelers, there's enough firepower on this offense with Wilson and Pickens and Najee and Jalen Warren and Freiermuth, maybe Mike Will, to, stymie this defense, especially without Kyle Hamilton. Case in point. Mike. Asshole. All right. Final 1:00 game. Raiders at the Dolphins, 7 points. This is just a slop fest. This is where everybody's going to buy Miami on a short week, coming home, lane 7, riding high after a big win on the road. Their defense played the best performance of this season, and they get let down. Is this not a Raiders +7 classic? Bring the Dolphins back down to life spot.
It is. And like I talked about with the Titans breakdown, like the Jaguars, obviously now with Mac Jones, everything that I thought about them is thrown out the window, but I was high on them despite their terrible record. I talked about Tennessee still being low on them with their terrible record. But Dolphins are a team that, with their terrible record, I am high on. Like, we see this offense as potential. They can hum when healthy. Like, Tua with Tyreek, Jalen, HN, like they have a big three that can, obviously Tua is not great, but like they can score the football and move the football. Like that's not going to be a concern. But I think this Raiders team is going to be able to do kind of similarly to how the pressure that they got on Tua. Like it's not like Tua was like clean pocket all day. It was just torching the Rams. He was put into a couple of terrible situations through a pick, had some other turnover-worthy plays as well. Also, Christian Wilkins' revenge game did not get paid by Miami. Went over to Las Vegas. Now he's going to go against a pretty poor interior offensive line, especially that's where Tua struggles the most when getting pressure right in his face. So I could see him and Crosby getting very active. Wilkins up the middle, Crosby obviously on the end. And I'm with you, Johnny, that this is a spot where I would be you won't catch me laying 7 with Miami off that huge, massive win.
Is Wilkins back? Because he was on the IR. He's back.
I missed that. No, I missed that then.
Let me bear with me one moment, please. I want to double check because I thought Wilkins was on the IR. Excuse me. Let's see.
Let me see. He probably is if I missed it, but
Christian Wilkins.
Yeah, it's on the IR. Yeah. His
right.
turn was my days are off. Hopefully we'd be back. His window would start next week, not this week. So missed that. That would have been a fun storyline. But
I think Max Crosby knows if this is revenge week. I think he's gonna be good here. I don't know, man. Like Miami's offense really didn't play that well, if we're being honest. I think their defense made some stops. The Rams, it was disappointing. What really pissed me off, I gotta say, was 3rd and 10 with 40 seconds left at inside the red zone. What was it, at the 10-yard line, something like that, 12-yard line? McVay opts for the field goal. What is one more play going to do on 3rd down? Take a shot in the end zone, you coward. Why are you kicking the field goal with 40 seconds left as if it's going to make a difference? Take one more. You have one more play. I'm not saying go for it on 4th down, but you had 3rd down. Take a shot into the end zone. Come on. What are we doing? I didn't really think Miami's offense played that well. I think the Rams defense, obviously Jared Verse is a dog, favored in the defensive rookie of the year race for a reason, but there's definitely some holes on this defense, and Miami didn't really take advantage of it. Tyreek Hill, I don't know what the hell's going on with him and Tua. Sad to see, it really is. Could have been a big year for them. 4 o'clock window. Rematch of Seattle and San Francisco. Seattle off a bye week. Pretty big spread here. 6.5 at San Francisco. Eric, I got to be honest. I want to see what's going on with DK Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see where that is. I would like I regardless would probably like this to be a JSN game. JSN's been hot. He had a $182 scores against the Rams. I don't want to lay this 6.5 with the Niners. But at the same time, I just don't think Seattle's defense is anywhere competent right now to stop San Francisco. The missed field goals really made this it kind of changed our opinion. If Moody doesn't miss these field goals, San Francisco covers and wins by 9 points. And it's not even a thought. That kind of spooked us a little bit. Mike McDonald has not run what you and I were hoping this year with the Seahawks. It's a lot of volume passing for Geno, fun for fantasy, fun for betting, but they do not look like that good of a team right now.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have to travel on the road into San Francisco. Seattle's had a tough time with the Niners in the past. I think this 6.5 is a fair lay for us, for me at least.
No, I agree with you. And what did it close? It closed at 3.5, I think, when it was in Seattle on that Thursday night game, and it ended up being a closer game than it should have been based on I think there was some like late score. I forgot exactly what went down there, but that was a situation where it was 36-24. Still won by one.
DK Metcalf 60-yarder brought back. I think Jordan Mason got hurt, and then Garendo took that 70-yard run and slid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, no, I mean, obviously I'm not impressed with what the Niners did off of a bye, obviously barely beating the Buccaneers there. But like you said, like Seattle's flawed, like up and down. Like I'm not going to sit here and say they're a bad football team, but I think in terms of like 4 and 5 teams, 5 and 4 teams, like 5 and 5 teams, like average team, like they're an average football team. And the Niners, like you said, like their track record going against Seattle is definitely something very to like consider. That it's like these are again coaches. I mean, obviously Mike McDaniel is new. Not Mike McDaniel, Mike McDonald, excuse me, is new. But I don't know. I make the game 5.5, and I think that I've already like gone off my Seattle priors. Obviously, we're 10 weeks, 11 weeks in. Like, I couldn't be holding on to priors for much longer, but I think I would lay it with the 49ers here. The Seattle defense is just not good at all. I think we're going to see more of Christian McCaffrey now that he's a week healthy and got some more game under him. A lot of San Francisco's problems early in the year was their inability to score in the red zone, and a lot of that was predicated on not having McCaffrey. Yeah, we have Seattle coming. I mean, they're off their bye as well, but I don't know. It's nothing I feel too strongly about either way, honestly. But gun to head, I would be playing it with San Francisco.
Who knows? Maybe there's a buyback and there's a Royal Mint spot, and then in that case, I'd be forced to take Seattle. You referenced this earlier. Atlanta, a dog at Denver. Mind you, Denver is the only true place in the NFL with the physical home field advantage with the altitude.
Of course.
The Broncos have gotten better every week. They took the Chiefs to the brink. A ridiculously blocked field goal was the reason why they didn't upset Kansas City on the road last week. Atlanta got stomped at New Orleans. I've mentioned many times, I think everybody raves about the Falcons, writes them in as an NFC dark horse, which they're not. And I've said that preseason, and you know that.
Mm-hmm.
At best, Atlanta is win the division, win a wild card game, and that's it. I think in this particular case, they could struggle, not just on the road, not just in an altitude game, but the Denver defense, the way they played against Mahomes with the pressure and having Pat Surtain shadow the number one and lock him down, and Bo Nix on the other side, his rushing ability, adding a lot of value. Cortland Sutton one-on-one. I think I like Denver here. It wouldn't surprise me to see Atlanta kind of do their thing and win this game or even cover. But I think as of right now, we're Wednesday, 8:12 p.m. I like the Broncos to win and cover this ball game.
Yeah, I'm so off. Whenever I'm off, I'd rather guess that I'm off, not the market's off. So I'm not going to be sitting here saying like, oh, I think I have this massive, crazy 3-point edge on the Falcons and I'm hammering them. I think the opposite, honestly. I'd make my numbers, and I've only been doing this, like I mentioned on the show before, for a couple of years. Like I have a long ways to go of being, much more confident. Again, we're talking about the most efficient market, so it's going to be tough. And obviously, sometimes I'm right on the money, which should be more often the case when you're dealing with an efficient market. But digression aside, I mean, I'm still not overall impressed with Denver's schedule and who they faced. Like when they finally took a step up in class against the Ravens, they got absolutely smoked. But that was on the road in Baltimore. Now they're at home. And Atlanta obviously doesn't have the same offense as the Ravens do. But I would be shocked if Atlanta didn't move the football. Like I know this Broncos defense at this point, like, yes, you can only play who you play. And yes, they played really well, but I don't know if they really are as good as their numbers are. But we're getting to the point now where it's hard to really be skeptical, or not, I shouldn't say skeptical. It's hard to like deny things at certain points now. Like if you've been a good defense for 11 weeks and your one really shitty showing was against the Baltimore Ravens, like you deserve a pat on the back. Like you have a good defense. Does that mean you have a great defense, Super Bowl caliber? Obviously not, but that means are you better than league average, which at this point is good enough? Like 100%. So they should be able to have some success. And I think that it might be a slight overreaction to them basically beating the Chiefs, except, getting that field goal blocked, which obviously they didn't beat the Chiefs. But that was a situation where they were going to come motivated, ready to go no matter what. Like it's an individual game. Sean Payton is one of the best coaches in football. He has been around the block, and he's going to have them ready to go and amped up. Again, right now, like you said, at 12, you didn't have an opinion. 8-15, I'm not betting anything on this right now. But even though it's square, I mean, even in like if it's 2.5 or even 1.5, like Atlanta in a teaser, like I don't think that this Broncos team is built to beat anybody by margin. And when I said they aren't built, the only team they beat by margin were the Raiders, the Buccaneers, and the Saints and the Panthers. The Saints in that Thursday night revenge game with obviously Radler going, which doesn't count. Panthers one of the worst teams in football. Okay, they could win by 14 there. Bucks was week 3 when crazy shit was going on, and the Raiders are our third worst team in football. So Falcons are definitely above league average. When they play above league average teams, the Broncos either lose or don't play well. And yes, they're at home, but I don't know. Maybe because at this point, like I don't even know if I'm like on the public side of that. I obviously don't pay too much attention to that, but I do keep my ears and eyes a little bit open. If I wake up Sunday morning with no play yet and I see that like everybody in the world is on the Falcons, I'm gonna just not touch it. But if I see it's kind of the opposite, maybe I'm galaxy brain a little bit, but I definitely lean toward the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay. Game of the week, KC at Buffalo. I think we're both at KC. I wouldn't be upset if Buffalo wins. I think it's big for Josh Allen MVP case. I have a lot of exposure with Josh Allen to win the MVP. So I am actually rooting for him for the first time ever. But, I mean, I wouldn't be heartbroken if KC won. But, you know, at the end of the day, Mahomes is getting points anywhere, anytime. That's a must bet. The Chiefs have not looked great, so granted, but they find ways to win. I think a lot of it is the referees helping them, but whatever it is, if you realize that by now, then might as well get on that side. I like the Chiefs here.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a must bet. Again, like you could spend your money in a million ways. You could, bet your parlays. You could bet the NFL. You could go out to dinner. Like you're still talking about your hard-earned money. Obviously, you should have your bankroll separated from your living dollars. But when you have a guy who is 12-3 straight up and 13-1-1 against the number as an underdog, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the sport already, and gunning for the top spot in the history of the National Football League, especially on a team. It's not like he's like carrying this crappy team. This very, very good team is arguably carrying him at points, the same way it was at the beginning of last year. And we all know what ended up happening. The Chiefs went on the road in the playoffs and then won another Super Bowl. So teasing Kansas City with whatever your favorite teaser leg of choice is. For me, Atlanta, Kansas City teaser looks pretty beautiful. That's something I'm very interested in. Like I mentioned, I already teased Miami from Monday night into KC, so I already have my KC teaser exposure, but may double back with Atlanta, honestly. But Patrick Mahomes is plus money. I will lose my money betting on Patrick Mahomes if that's the case.
Yeah, I think KC in a teaser is awesome here. The other leg that I'd probably have them in there with is the Cincinnati Bengals, Eric. Getting the Bengals at 7.5. I mean, we talked about this ad nauseum. I mean, I'll let you go here, but I'm going to leave it with this. This is the Bengals' playoff hopes. If they lose this game, they're probably done. So they are fighting for their lives in Week 11, which is hard to believe when you're going to have probably the best quarterback in the NFL in 2024 and the best receiver in the NFL this year. And they're still on the brink of not making the playoffs. Do or die, now or never.
Do or die, now or never should be fun. I think Los Angeles, again, we've talked about like who they played. They haven't really played anybody good whatsoever. They have an identity, though, which is hard to overlook. Like they know what they want to be as a football team. Justin Herbert's absolutely balling, and I'm glad he's getting his flowers because, Johnny, I was talking about this week, like 5-6 when he finally started getting healthy again. I was like, bro, Justin Herbert's passing props are at 190. Like those are Gardner Minshew numbers. We're talking about Justin Herbert. Obviously, those days are long gone now as he's getting priced accurately as who he is, great quarterback. But like you said, I think the Bengals are going to give them the biggest scare that they've had offensively. Like, you look at who they played. They haven't played a single great offense by any stretch of the imagination. And the Bengals are a great offense. So I think this is a spot for – I don't want to say them to get exposed because, again, if you really are breaking it down, it's not like the Chargers are this juggernaut. Like, yeah, they're 6-3, so you can call it exposed. But the Bengals should be able to move the football on this Chargers team, both in the air and on the ground. Los Angeles should be able to move it back. I think The one thing that keeps me kind of interested in Los Angeles a little bit is because, like you said, the Tomlin effect with like the coaching experience, like that Harbaugh effect is similar, and that goes back to the identity that they have. Like they know how they want to try to win and play their own football games, which is sometimes half the battle, and it's surprising how many teams don't even have close to an identity. But the aggression aside, I think Cincy in a teaser is definitely worthwhile of a look. If you get that 1.5, you got the 2.5, and you have 8.5, and you're covered through touchdowns, Cincy is definitely a teaser leg that I'm looking at as well.
Yeah, for sure. I like Cincinnati outright this week. I'm probably going to book that one. Herbert's my guy, man. He really is. I've been a big Justin Herbert fan since he came into the league. Chargers were my 2022 Super Bowl pick, and I just think that team's DNA was weak. I think a lot of it had to do with their head coach, Brandon Staley. But Jim Harbaugh, resiliency, strength, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, and he's not afraid in the big moment. Last game, Monday night, Houston, 7.5 points at their Lone Star State rival, the Dallas Cowboys. Eric, I think I'm going to go Dallas here, plus 7.5. Nico Collins should be back, but what's the common theme? The week after somebody plays the Lions. I think Houston probably wins this game, but 7.5 points at home. I think we're going to see a little bit more of a competitive game from the Cowboys. And to be fair, I think the game against the Eagles got away from them. There was a lot of opportunity. Like they almost scooped and scored in the end zone early in the game. Sacked Jalen Hurts. The ball's down at like 2-yard line. They don't end up scoring. Like that's nuts. They don't end up scoring. I don't think they scored any points. I don't know if it was the same drive or it was a different drive. CeeDee Lamb has a touchdown, but Sun is brutal. Jerry Jones, I don't know what he's thinking, the way he built that building with the light exposure, but I think after a while it just started compounding. But I think Dallas had some opportunities, and I think this week at home against a Texans team that might be a little bit sluggish, they're going to have a chance to cover the spread.
I make the game 6-2-5, so I do see value with the Cowboys. I agree that, because the whole Lions, the Lions game after situation, like the reason why that is a thing is because of how physical they are. I think I mentioned that also when it comes to the Commanders Steelers. The Steelers are a very physical team where, again, we don't have these glaring numbers and trends like the Lions, but I think that physicality, you feel that. But with that, like with Houston, like they played with their hair on fire in that first half, and they really did their best to win that football game. Like obviously teams do that every single week to win, but they really were looking competitive and good. And like they showed the glimpses of like the team that I personally thought they could possibly be coming to the year. But this first down and second down inefficiency on offense, I've spoke about it ad nauseum. I talked about it all summer and all beginning of the season, how I'll go into it real quick again. To start last year, they just kept running on first and second down and then put CJ Stroud on shitty third downs. Finally, they switched it up. What they do, they became a darling team. CJ Stroud was an animal. So we thought coming to this year, they would continue that. What did they do? They went back to what they were doing to start last year, which didn't work, which is putting Stroud in these terrible third down situations. Obviously, no Nico, a banged-up Tank Dell, and obviously no Diggs has been difficult. Getting Nico back is huge, and I think it is huge against the Cowboys team. Though it's not enough to be like a savior, but numbers-wise, pure numbers-wise, I'd see value with Dallas here, and I would not be laying the 7.5 with Houston.
Nope, no way. Especially a team in Houston that does not have anything outside of 1-point possessions. Obviously, the spread is 1-point possession between 7 and 8, but everything with them is pretty much close for the most part. There's not really any tutty looks right now, so nothing really to offer there. But Eric, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we get on out of here?
No, nothing. Because again, I haven't really dove into the board like all that hard, and I don't have anything bet yet. There's been some weeks, obviously, I fire early. Some weeks I haven't fired until later in the week. I think this is the spot where I'm going to be sitting tight. Like I said, got my teeth kicked in last week, all in the game, not sweating it, making it back at NBA props. should just stick to, because we're betting on the hardest market in the world, betting NFL spreads. But no, I have nothing really else to add, Johnny. What about you?
All I would say is I'm hoping that there's a little bit more of better competition this week. I hope we get some good games because honestly, a lot of these matchups aren't good. There's maybe 3 or 4 really good matchups that I'm looking forward to. But in any case, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to check us out next Wednesday as we go into week 12. Get into a little bit more of the Futures Awards and see where they currently are and where we project them to be. So, Eric, thank you so much for stopping by. Everybody, we hope you win your bets this week. Best of luck.
Appreciate you guys.